Welcome back to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I'm Juliette Hahn here with my co-host Brent Sopel in October 2024. Dyslexia Awareness Month.
Oh, look at you go.
Yes, and so we're setting up.
Go, Juliet, go.
Do you want to say the next part?
B, boy, Bob, Boat, Bridgett, Burrick, Bethlehem.
Yes. So Bridgett will love that. So Bridgett Burrick Brown from our October Dyslexic Awareness Month 2023. We're bringing her back for the last episode, wrapping up Dyslexic Awareness Month. And she's with Beyond Beauty Project. I know there's so many B's.
Way too many. Hang on. Is that 5 B's?
Bridgett Burrick Brown, Beyond Beauty. Yeah, 5. And P, right? So the last is P. Yep.
P.
So enjoy.
How I wonder what you are.
Bye. Welcome back to Word Blindness. This is still Dyslexia Awareness Month, and we are bringing guests to share their story. And I'm so excited to have Bridgett Burrick Brown. I always stutter that.
Way too much for me.
I'm so sorry. Too many B's.
And then Beyond Beauty Project, which Bridgett is the founder, and that is a movement to help improve your self-esteem, confidence, and body image through mental health. And mental health is something that Brent it's what he embodies and what he is teaching and speaking through his foundation, the Brent Sopel Foundation, which is the Dyslexic Foundation, but it all stems from, this mental health. And so when I was thinking of guest for this, I all of a sudden I actually said to Dan, I was like, oh my God, I think Bridgett would be perfect for this. And Dan goes, wait, what? I didn't know Bridgett was dyslexic. And I go, what are you talking about? I go, remember, we've talked about this. And he's like, oh, I kind of do remember this. And I said, that was one of the things that we connected after we connected. And then we really started talking about it. And I have to say, Bridgett is literally one of the most beautiful souls inside and out that I've ever met. And I could actually get choked up about it because what she's doing in this space, but her story, she's been on my podcast, and her story, every time I think about it, I actually get emotional because what she has been through and the warrior that she has come to the other side, and the people that she helps with her project and the people that just get to be around her is a really beautiful thing. So welcome to Word Blindness, another B.
But that message that you just said, yeah, I'm not going to cry. I'm heart and soul, but that inner beauty is the most beautiful thing, and that's that self-esteem is everything for me, and
yeah,
it starts from the inside out. And that self-esteem, that self-confidence. So when I watched some of your stuff and she told me what you're doing, I'm like, that's exactly. I'm Mr. Negative. You'll learn that quickly here. Miss Positive over here. But it's amazing. I always say you gotta fall in love with yourself. You look in the mirror and you gotta say, I love you. Know it, feel it, and believe it.
Yes, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
I'm excited too. And I
love this stuff.
No, I know. And well, that's what I said. And as I've gotten to know Brent, and he always says he's negative. He's a realist. I don't consider him negative.
I think change it too now, though. Come on.
I know. In the beginning, I was like, oh, we're very negative.
Help you out.
Exactly. But he is a realist, and it's because of his story and what he's been through. And he's another one. And I'm going to say he's a beautiful soul too, because he really is. And he does not people don't see that because they see this ice hockey player, right? This Canadian ice hockey player. But when you get to know him, it's like, oh my gosh, this man has so much to share, so much beauty inside and outside, even though he doesn't feel it. But he really is, again, doing what he's doing. And what his whole mission is to help children not feel the way he did going through school and life. And that right there is can punch you in the gut, because it is truly what he embodies and what he wants to do. So we're really excited to have you on.
I love where that comes from, Brent, because I was just on this mastermind group before we jumped on, and people were talking about why they do what they do. And this one guy just started kind of riffing about how when he first started, he didn't have, maybe all the education or all the credentials, but he has the passion and this like higher calling. And as he started going, I was just like, that's mine. Like, I don't have like the college education. I don't have, the expertise in marketing or whatever, I'm dyslexic. I have ADHD that I just found out about, but like I have a
Welcome.
higher calling that I cannot ignore. And it gives me chills every day, because I'm like, that's my why,
Yeah, and
So
I
love
love
that.
how you're using the word why. We use that word a lot. Yeah. I'm like, did you guys talk before this? Because there's always a why. Like, there's no such thing as a class clown or a bully. There's a why. But I didn't find out till I was 32 I was dyslexic. So my education probably doesn't take me past grade 8. Canadian hockey player just passed me, found out, got my daughter tested. Oh, that's me. Dysgraphia, dyscalculia, ADHD, dyslexia. Should we keep on going on? What else could we hang on? Thought I was dumb. I still wake up every day today thinking that I'm dumb. And people go, just don't think that way. I'm like, well, that's kind of how it's deep, and it's trauma. And that's why I am the realist, because I'm not the only one, we all have trauma.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because whenever I will totally geek out on like self-help stuff. And anytime I do an exercise that's sort of what's the story you tell yourself, like what's your limiting belief that holds you back, the very first thing that I say to myself is that I'm stupid. Well, you're stupid. You're dumb. You're not smart enough. And I've learned a lot from my daughter as well. Like, so I don't know if you guys want me to start telling my story.
Tell your story.
Should I just dive? I know how Juliet does these. She's like, dive in. So I grew up with a dad that couldn't read or write because he was severely dyslexic. So that just was kind of always known in our household. And then both of my brothers were severely dyslexic as well. And then I sort of, now in hindsight, skated by because I wasn't severely dyslexic. So cut to now, I have a daughter who's dyslexic and she has dysgraphia and dyslexia and ADHD and, blah, blah, blah. And since I've started my project, because I worked as a model for a really long time, that can also add another complex onto that you're stupid. And so as I started actually, I always was like, I am smart, even though I would also tell myself that I'm stupid. It's like I knew I was, but then no, because like, people have been telling me, or I don't know, if a combo, people and myself telling myself that I'm stupid. But now that I've started my project and had to actually write and read and do all these things, I'm like, wow, I am smart. I am smart, but I still will go back. I regress all the time. Like I can be in a room with people that all have a college degrees and I'm like, oh God, I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. It's just like, it's like a constant like healing process. Getting out of that story we tell ourselves.
We all went to D1 school of hard knocks.
Yeah. Yep.
It's made us who we are, good, bad, or indifferent. And, I never think I'm smart. I always hated when people said that, because what's the opposite of smart? Dumb. That's what we were told for years. And I'm the Canadian, kind of like in the model. I'm the dumb hockey player, and if I knocked out, I got no idea what I'm talking about. And it's just, our brains are so different. People look at me like, dude, you're a whack job. I'm like, I know I am, but I'm the only whack job. Am I the only whack job here? So it was always isolating. I never connected with anybody. Was I the class clown? Yep. Was I the bully? Yep. They laughed at. We can go on and on of that trauma and why I have a million defense mechanisms. And sober, I was almost dead. All the drugs I did, alcohol, I love it. escape from this body in my mind? Yes, please.
Yeah.
And then I listen to Juliet, call me crying because she hates school and her kids are always 5 minutes late to only school.
It's true. Only school, 5 minutes late. So, Bridgett, it's interesting is there's so many things now that doing this podcast, but also even starting the podcast, Your Next Stop, when I started that, and then talking about my story, my life, right? And I was always like, oh, I'm good with that. I've healed, I'm doing these things. But again, yes, we give ourselves that narrative when we're in certain situations, right? We give that narrative that we're stupid, or we become that class clown again. I was always the funny one. I am funny.
No, you're not.
I will put it that way.
It's fair about that.
I'm hilarious.
He's the funny one. We all have to have one.
Right.
Always gonna have one.
Too. I'm pretty funny too.
You are funny, right? So, but it's interesting, even in our adult world, when we're put in situations where all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, what are they talking about? I'm going to skirt out, or I'm going to change the subject, or I'm going to do something. And it's so interesting to feel it as we go. And every year during school, like the beginning of school, I get this massive anxiety. When Montgomery was in Southport, I didn't, but every time I get this like crazy anxiety, but I don't kind of always correlate it with school and my traumas, right? I always think like, I just want it to be, I want the teachers to understand. I don't want him to get like shit on right when he gets, and I also get the anxiety for the other two, but it's very different, right? It's this whole thing. Yeah. And this last year, Brent had called me like right before school. He's, how you doing? And hormones were involved too. Let's be frank. But I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I literally just lost it. And I was like, I just want to protect. I mean, he's a senior in high school, and it's like, I just don't want. My senior year was a tough year because I was getting recruited for lacrosse, and I couldn't get my SATs up, and it was all this, like the guidance counselor's telling me, you're not going to go to school, you're dumb, all these different things. And it's like, God, I really thought I was over that. I'm going to be 50 this year. What the fuck? Right? But it is. And so, yeah. And it was funny because Brent's like, you've been doing this all the time. He's like, I could feel it. Like every time I talked with you, I could feel, because he's also super intuitive, I could feel your anxiety starting to like brew. And I'm like, yeah, I just kind of figured it's like September, but September takes me down. And I know it's not over. Yeah. I mean, if Montgomery goes to college, it's going to be that time. So it's these things, and every guest that we've had on for Dyslexic Awareness Month, Brent, right? It's we all start talking about something, and then we all can relate, and it's really cool. Yeah. It's actually so cool to see. But then hearing, someone else tell their story, Stephen Key, who was on our first guest. He actually, it was the first time he really openly talked about his dyslexia, and he's this wildly successful inventor. I mean, and has written for like Entrepreneur Magazine and Forbes, like thousands of articles.
Don't forget about Teddy Ruxpin.
Right. He was one of the people behind Teddy Ruxpin. I mean, like this man, but hearing him speak about his trauma and how he's really never dealt with it, and then being able to express it, it is these things. It doesn't matter how confident we get ourselves, because, we talk about innate confidence and different things, but then you put yourself back in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting in math class, right? In 7th grade. And it's like, what the fuck?
Totally. Yeah. The PTSD around it. That's what you're having. PTSD every time your kids go to school in September. And then it's like they go on to the workforce after college. But I think some of that comes from our coping methods, like you were saying, Brent, because I know if I can control my situation, then I can sort of protect myself and hide. And I can appear smart, even though I am smart, and I'm really trying to embody really smart, that lately. Yeah. But it's like, as soon as I'm in a situation that makes me feel uncomfortable, it's like all of my shields and my coping mechanisms have disintegrated, and I feel really raw and vulnerable, and I'm freaking the F out. I'm like, oh God, I'm having a full panic attack. I will I don't know if you guys do this with your dyslexia, but I switch my words as I'm talking. So I'll flip them. And then,
forget sentences, paragraphs. People are like, what the hell is this?
And people probably don't even realize, but then I will listen to myself and I'm like, oh my God, I just did it. Now they know, and now they think I'm stupid. And then that story starts running that I've been working on getting rid of. And I'm like, oh God.
But you're all smart. We're all smart in our own way. You know, you're both beautiful. You're both smart in their own way. And so is everybody else in the world. You know, somebody's good at algebra. Somebody's good at history, even though history is bullshit. And we'll get down that rabbit hole later because nobody was there to see it. And, you know, so everybody's smart in their own way. And that's okay. We all have strengths and weaknesses. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just getting to be okay with it.
That's why I love that you guys are normalizing this, because there's so many of us walking around feeling like this, and we shouldn't, because it's like what I talk a lot in my project, like we don't fit in a box. None of us fit in a box. So let's, like, you guys are breaking down the walls of that box and saying, like, we're all smart in different ways. We have different values in different ways. And our self-worth isn't defined by this box of like, you went to college or whatever, you know, you got a certain score on your SAT. Like, like that stuff is going bye-bye. Mm-hmm. And these are the conversations.
No SAT.
By the way, people with ADHD are freaking smart as hell. And dyslexia and dysgraphia. Like, my daughter will do a math problem and everything's flipped and upside down, and then she'll tell me the answer, and I'm like, that, I don't even know how you did that, but you did that. And like, no one else could do that if those numbers were all flipped. That's not somebody that's not smart, you know? So there's this lack of education around it too, that I'm glad you guys are getting out.
Yeah, we're going down a lot of rabbit holes. You're touching on every single rabbit hole that her and I go down. You know, I always say that we go in the side door. You know, I got, you know, she's, you know, I can predict things that are going to happen. People are like, what the fuck? How'd you know that? You know, it's just way things are said, what was the terminology, you know. And now the question to both of you is, does anybody fit in the box? Because each one of us are special. We're our own people. So really, if we want to take a 10,000 foot view of the world, does anybody fit in a box?
I would say no, but I think people that want to fit in a box think they should fit in a box, have been brainwashed
to try to fit in the box,
or you won't be accepted. Come close or try to, but I would say that they're probably not happy.
No, totally. No, and I just want to say, you know what's interesting, because this is raising now 3 kids, one with dyslexia, you know, ADHD, dysgraphia, all the dyscalculia, you know, all of that, and then 2 others that really don't. Like, you know, maybe there's slight stuff, but nothing like the first. And I have always said, and I just recently, and Brent knows this, I recently have had to go back and be like, let me talk to the other 2, because I've built up, like, you don't want to fit in a box. Those people are boring. We're way more fun. Like dyslexia, ADHD, like, we're fun. People want to be around this. Right. But it is, it's like, we can be that energy. And so I have had to, and I've actually just recently, and they both were like, you're doing a good job, Mom. You're fine. But I'm like, I just don't want you to feel like, because I'm saying this, that you don't feel like you're worthy because it's only cool to have these things. Like, and they're like, no, we're aware what you've been doing all these years to lift Montgomery up, you know, and we appreciate it. But I've had to like stop, because it is like, if you meet people that have, and we talk about this all the time, and Bridgett, you know, I probably even talked about this when you were on the podcast, the grit and the, like, what we get from the struggles and the way that all the coping mechanisms. I mean, it is really, really cool to see what we can, once we're past, and we'll get into this, once we can get past that self-esteem, right? Like, once it's like, okay, I do accept myself in this body, and I know, okay, I have strengths and weaknesses and limitations. But then once we get kind of past that, and then you really think about how we go around things, and we go backwards and on the side, in the side door, and turn our heads upside down, and then we create this thing, and it's like, yes. it is really, really cool to see. And it makes for a more well-rounded human once they get past and once they're okay. I know Brent's rolling his eyes at me right now. What do you have to say about that?
What did your daughter say? What did she come back and say earlier? Well, I'm not dyslexic, so I guess I'm not cool. Is that what she said?
Something. Yeah. I mean, it was like, it basically, when she was little, I think it was Truman. He came to me, or one of them, and said, I want to be dyslexic. You said everyone that's dyslexic are really cool. And I was like, oh, like this is when they were little. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I was like, oh, I got to backtrack. So it's so cute. But then I was like, oh, no, you're not dyslexic. So, right. What is that message I'm giving to them? So it was like this kind of mind F, right? That I was like, okay, how do I lift this one kid up, but then also lift the other two up? Because they're wonderful in their own way, right? But I'm trying to lift this kid up because of all of the just pounding that he's getting left and right. And I know what that pounding is because I've been there. So how do you do it? And it's been interesting. And as I said, just like probably a couple days ago, I went to the other two and they were like, yeah, we're very well aware, Mom. We're all good.
Yeah, Mom, you're a whack job. You're okay. You know, it's I always call it relatability.
Sweet.
You know, relatability is something that I, speak on a lot and on a lot of different, levels. Going to therapist or counselor, whatever. I always say you've got to go to somebody who's had a couple of your major traumas.
Yeah.
Because if not,
totally.
You're going to counsel out of page 122, and then you're going to sit and get pissed off. I call it gaslighting because there's no relatability. We all we can hear and we can laugh and smile, but we all relate. And you sit talk about our struggles. Everybody's got struggles. That's what makes you who you are, and your modeling career. You made it because of your struggles. Nobody makes it on their wins. What's the terminology? You need to learn more from your losses and your wins.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what we do every day. Is people take for granted how often we read. Now try struggling every goddamn time and see how you feel at the end of an 8-hour school day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I hope more awareness is brought to this too, because I think some people, if they don't have Juliet as their mom, can hide because they don't want to lose. And if we don't lose, we don't move forward. If you don't try ever, like if you want to move forward, you got to lose. It's going to happen. You know that from hockey. It's like, but if you don't have the Juliets as your mom, that's tough, It can be tough in school still. I loved the other day, I was in the car with my daughter and somebody said, why do you go to a different school? And she said, because I have dyslexia. And she said it very and I was just like, and I was about to say, oh, because her brain works differently. And she has to, I was going to go down this rabbit hole of everyone learns differently and she learned, and she was just like, I have dyslexia. So I go to this school. It's really good for me.
So that brings up a very good point. So we've talked about Mr. Negative. You two obviously were exposed to dyslexia at a very, very young age. Obviously your dad's had it. Juliet, your dad just brought out, all his
my dad had his files, Bridgett. He had his file of all of his tests. Really? I was like, oh my God, Dad, I think cool. But I was also like, I think maybe you have some stuff you haven't worked through.
So it's, you guys
bring
have
this
known,
trauma to his therapist.
You've had understanding of what dyslexia is. You've been able to expose and be a positive influence on on your kids, more than I was for my daughter because I didn't know what it was. Being in Canada, I think less than 20% of the world knows what it is now. Never go back, 20, 30 years ago. I didn't know what the fucking word was. So was I there to support my daughter? No, because I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know how to support her. I was still playing. I'm like, oh, what's that? Then oh, that's you. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh, I don't play. I don't care. I don't need to read and play hockey. But you guys inside your house have had the confidence and the understanding of what it all is and what it all means, growing up, so that you can share that confidence in having it, with your kids more than I have and did with my daughter. And it's just recently where I've put a lot of the understanding together. Now, if I could go back 20 years, I would almost feel like in place where you guys were or was at that age, to exude that confidence so that your daughter could sit there confidently and say that.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm going to say to that? I'm going to say that we all do the best that we can where we're at and what we have. And
but does that make sense?
Sure what you're doing now is like very inspiring.
Yeah, does that make sense? Just because with the listeners, I always like to take a different angle. Trying to expose all angles. So we're not alone. There's nobody else. And how many parents call you crying? What do I do? Because they just got diagnosed or they didn't know. Where do we go? So this is where her and I became the negative and positive for the longest time. Is
love it.
What innate confidence, as you like to say, you're born with. But it's your mom. That's a whole different rabbit hole. But I wasn't okay with my strengths and weaknesses. I wasn't okay till just recently. And I've been sober almost just over 7 years, and I had to get sober to sit back and feel my feelings. I'm like, I gotta play sober golf and have sober sex the rest of my life. What's this bullshit?
Yeah.
But it's sitting with those feelings, being okay with it, and having strengths and weaknesses that you guys have passed down to your kids, in ways that are amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I think Juliet actually taught me the whole strengths and weaknesses as well from your podcast. Do you know that?
I
was like, that's such a good way to look at it. We're not all good at everything, which you kind of know, but I think we probably flaw ourselves more in society than we should. Like, we think, going back to the box, like, we should all, get really good grades in school, and we should be athletic, or we should, and I think with academics, it's really a pressure cooker in a lot of towns. Where I think the athletics can be like, oh, he's just a talented hockey player, where it's like, oh, you don't do good in school. Why? Are you stupid? But
it's funny how many people call you and saying, hey, I didn't know you were dyslexic. How many messages you get?
Just recently, and I was like, I've been talking about it forever, but and it was a lot of the kids in class, right? So it was like I had a lot of calls from high school people that were in class together, and they basically they're like, I guess now it makes sense. We were in the same class, right? But we didn't realize until the podcast that I didn't realize, okay, how much you struggled in school, because I played sports. I was popular. I had this, but then I was going to all the lower level classes. So I was with mostly boys that were in trouble. And it was like, oh, here comes Juliet again, So it was like, I was like the dumb girl jock, which when I look back at now, that kind of was like, all right, we all had our labels. And it was like, I don't really like this label, but what do you do? I was the class clown, dumb girl jock that, no, she's not very good in school, but put her on the field, so that's what my teachers would say to me all the time. Like, just if you worked and focused like you do on the sports field or like you do with your friends, you would be successful in school. You're not putting the effort in. You're not doing it. You're not focused. I would get that all the time. You're not focused. You're not focused.
Yeah.
But I have something for Bridgett, though, because this is like when she was explaining, because I know my younger sister went through something similar, but she's not dyslexic, but she struggled in school, but she didn't struggle as much as us. So she was always like, oh, you're fine, right? You're fine. And later in life, she was like, Mom, I wasn't fine just because I wasn't failing.
Yeah.
So how did that, because both of your brothers and your dad, and it was like, it probably was a breath of like, oh my gosh, okay, she's okay, because she's not as dyslexic, but it was like, how, because that can F you up in many different ways too, because it's like, okay, I'm not struggling as much as them, but school's still hard for me.
Yeah, so I think that because my brother had such a hard time, that my mom was like that, like, oh, she's fine, she's fine. And I somehow I did okay. I got very scrappy. I'm not gonna say there wasn't cheating, was never involved, so there might have been some cheating. Like I got real. I was because I am. It's funny, even though we started this by I say the first thing I go to is I'm dumb. I also have this like innate belief, like you said, that I am really smart. I'm smart in those ways of like reading the room. I'm crazy intuitive. Like I know exactly what's going on in 2 seconds, you know? So I think those sort of I guess innate skills that I had really helped me in school. But I was just talking to my twin brother because I was home this weekend. And I was like, you know what? Because he used to always be like, you cannot focus for anything. And it was always in my house, like I was the stupid one, even though I could read, which is a joke. I could joke with you guys. But it was like, because then my brothers were really smart at math and I wasn't. And I flip my numbers a lot now that I've learned. So I would come to math and I'd be like, what the heck, you know? So I was kind of still a little bit like, oh, Bridgett, like, you know, or she can't focus, or she doesn't know how to do math, or she doesn't know how to do computers. Like we had gotten computers because I'm, you know, at the age where you didn't have computers when you're little. And so I just told him, I was like, and it felt so good, to be honest. I was like, you know, I just recently finally got an actual ADHD diagnosis. So all those years that you've been making fun of me. But I will say, so to answer your question, sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
No, you're good.
To answer your question, I think that if it's not severe, I think you can fly under the radar, especially if there's multiple kids. That's exactly what happened with me. And I think I got scrappy and I started almost having this like dirty little secret. Like
those.
you know, like I have a dirty little secret that like I got a good, you know, I got a pretty good grade point and I got a good grade, but I was like, I have no idea how in the hell I got that in a way at the ending. And what happened over the years is I had this internal dialogue where maybe people on the outside might think I'm smart or put together, but I'm actually really stupid. I'm really dumb. You know, I don't know how to do it. And I think that's how it started affecting my self-esteem. And it started affecting me like even socially and stuff, because as I would talk to people even about politics or whatever world event was going on, it's like I got really like, what if I don't know all the data, and what if I flip it in my head, and you know. So I think, yeah, I think I love the school that Scarlett's at now because I only knew severe dyslexia besides myself now. And there's kids that just, and I'm like, oh God, if I would have gotten the help that they're getting, you guys, I could be the president of the United States.
Wow, let's pull that back.
I know.
Yes, she could. Yes, she could.
I always joke with my husband, I'm like, if I would have gotten a dyslexia and ADHD diagnosis when I was little, it would just be out of control. This would be out of control.
No, but you know what you just said, which is so funny, because my tagline is that I could interview. Like what I love that you said, this is now everyone said it. We're so intuitive. And so like listeners, when you're listening to this, they're going to be like, oh my God, okay. And we do not talk before. Like, so this is like what it is. The majority of like, if you do a cross section, super intuitive, could read rooms, really good at communicating in many aspects. And I would say, like, I used to interview for jobs because I was also like super competitive. I'm like, I'm going to get fucking that job. I'm going to go get it. And I would go interview, and then I would get into the job and I'd be like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, now I need to find someone in the corporation, just like I used to do in class, that's going to be able to support me, because I'm not going to be able to do this. And then as I was kind of thinking I was getting found out, I'd be like, I'm going to go move to the next job, and I am going to get more money, and I'm going to be interviewing. And I used to say I could interview to be the president of the United States, even though like, who wants to be the president of the United States? I don't know who, but I could do that. I could literally interview and then be in the role and be like, Okay, no idea, because I know how to read people. I know how to read a room. I know how to sell myself in a good way.
How much?
Not on the corner. I mean, I probably would be pretty good at that too.
American. What are we
don't
talking?
work on the corner.
But it's
No.
it's funny,
I just wonder, like, gosh, where would I be? Like, where would my confidence be? Like, I've had to work really hard in my adult life to cultivate a confidence that kind of, I think I had when I was younger. It's like you have that, like, 8-year-old confidence or that kid confidence. And as I grew older and I started sort of feeling like, oh, like, don't let anybody, like, find me out, kind of, I think my confidence got beat down. And so I always just wonder, like, gosh, where, you know, would I have had that bout of depression?
the what if games. The what if games.
Yeah. So I think anybody listening, like, sometimes it's hard to, like, say that our children need help, but it's the most beautiful gift that we can give them is stopping and saying, even if they need a little bit of help. I just think it's a game changer.
Every kid needs help. We all, we all need help. And, you talked about getting, skating by and getting figured out. But there's so many different levels to dyslexia. Some don't know our lefts and our rights. Fine motor skills. There's just so many different levels to this. When you talk about confidence, either, my highs are so high and my lows are so low. So in hockey, I'd have 4 or 5, 6, 7 great games, but one thing, then I'm down for weeks. Or, there's an email in my email box. I'm afraid to open it up. I'm afraid what it's going to say. Text message, I'm afraid what that's going to, say. So it's, my self-esteem, again, I never connected with anybody. Everybody's, and nobody's ever kind of reached out to me from school because I was a jock, I put my name on it, and 50% was passing perfect. My mom did all my homework, so I didn't get, found out, or I got called stupid all the time. But I was the jock. But there's so many things that go into dyslexia that our defense mechanisms are amazing, absolutely amazing. How we can get around.
Yeah.
Things. Julia, what'd you say? The red pencil? You'd break off the red pencil
in Latin
lead
class.
pencil?
That's the only way because I failed every foreign language. I mean, now we know that dyslexics should not be taking foreign language. I came from Yale, and so I fight for that for my kid. But I literally in Latin class, because it was the last one, my older sister took it, who was really good in school. Not my oldest, but my sister that was adopted was really good in school. And she's like, it's so easy. I literally went in there and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So you did your test, and then the teacher would give you a red pen to correct it. So I'd break the red tip off, break a regular pencil off, put the regular pencil in the red pen, and then write the answers. And that's the only way. And I think, but however, I only passed.
Smart.
But I only passed with the D, because we were talking about this the other day.
So,
I think
you passed.
I passed, but I could have. I think during family circumstances, my one sister gave my parents a really hard time. My parents had gotten divorced, and so I didn't want to upset the apple cart at one point. So I think I cheated just enough, because I looked back and I was like, well, clearly I didn't cheat well enough. I did not have very good grades. Where I know some people that were like, oh, I cheated my whole way through, and they had A's and B's, and I'm like, I had C's and D's. I guess I kind of cheated. I don't know, but I was very creative in it.
But wouldn't that be staying under the radar?
Well, maybe that's what I was doing. Let's say that instead of I was a bad cheater. I like under the radar better.
I was I didn't cheat all the time either, because I was not going to be that risky, but when I needed to, I figured out a way.
Right, looking at your friend's paper and then realizing that you can't see and being like, tell me the answers. I can't fucking see. I can't see.
And they're covering their paper.
This person, I hated that person.
See, it's funny you guys talk about school. I don't remember I don't remember anything. You talk about.
Did you black it out?
Yeah, your brain is the most powerful part of your body. You can make it tell you whatever you want. And do I remember certain things? Yeah, I remember my traumas. Picking up a desk in grade 3 and throwing it at a kid. Grade 9 getting laughed at, in front of the class. So I don't remember much about schools. I don't remember cheating. I remember my mom doing most of my homework, or I'm doing a headstand in the kitchen while she's doing it and telling me to, focus, because I just don't want to do it, because it was the most painful, agonizing thing. I'd rather break a million bones that I did. I stay awake for surgeries. There's no pain. I played with back out of place. Every bone I broke in hockey, I finished the game. There was no pain that was that severe compared to the internal pain that I felt all those years in school.
Yeah. Wow. That's a powerful way to say that.
It's
like what's inside of our head can just really
such a beautiful place.
Thank you, God. You got Juliet to keep you positive.
I was going to say, it can be a very beautiful place, right?
Yeah, I mean, our head can be a hard place to live in,
The self-doubt.
Did your mom or your parents growing up, did they not know about ADHD or dyslexia?
He never even heard the word until he was 32. He was like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
So remember, God's country.
And the school never, I guess, is Canada a little less... Are they a little behind when it comes to
that's right.
Now. We had an igloo and sled dogs. Yeah, so it's okay.
Yeah, like, where did you live in Canada?
I speak Canadian.
I mean, listen, with my brother, it was still very he had to go to the special classroom, and, they handle it much better now, but so the school never said anything.
So I'm from, Montana, North Dakota border, go north, Saskatchewan, God's country. It's snowing there right now. So, minus 50 in the winter, amazing place. Watch your dog run away for 3 days. But I went to school, kindergarten to grade 8, all in one. So there's no middle school or junior high that you have. And, the only computers, we played Oregon Trail, and I hated when my wheel broke, and I got, I had to get, little deer. That's the only food I could get. But there was no understanding. Like, there was no computers. There's, calling cards. So it's still, to this day, majority of the people that I speak with think dyslexia is just flipping your B's and D's. And I'm like, that's 5% to it. So in Canada, the whole world's behind, way behind in dyslexia. No clue. Being the second most popular thing in the world. So it's, I don't blame my parents. I don't blame the school I went to. My path is my path and got me here, today. But like Julia said, I didn't know what the word was. I never heard the word till the neuropsychs, mentioned it.
You said that.
So I'm like, what is this word?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how do you spell that?
Where I know the spelling.
Yeah, I was so curious, but yeah.
But so, and then Brent didn't, he was still playing. So it was like, okay, well, I don't need to worry about that, right? So he never really dealt with it until after the league, after he left in the league, and then watching his daughter. Of course you did.
Her, what does she need? What does she need? But myself, no, I was still playing hockey, and I played till I was 18 years pro, till I think I was 39 years old, and then I walk away from the game. I'm like, holy fuck! Now what? So it was take care, make sure my daughter's great, make sure whatever help she needs. What do we need to do? It's a neuropsych, Wilson Reed, Jordan Gillingham. What was it? OT, got it for her. She's a senior in college right now. Doing amazing, but. I didn't care about myself, and it sounds bad that way. I wasn't, that wasn't a part of my life till I was almost 40, where I needed to use that, because I had hockey, and that was, again, not writing, and that's why hockey saved my, when I was on that ice, I knew I didn't have to read. I've never read a book. I knew I didn't have to answer that math question, so I could just go out there and be there for hours and hours. That was the only thing I get my self-esteem from, so I never never left it. So I never cared about focusing or trying to understand it for myself till I almost died with all the amount of drugs and alcohol. I had to get sober, and then it's like, all right, this is fun.
Like, all right. Thank God for hockey, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Saved my
God
life.
does give us.
I say it every day. You know, I'm alive because of hockey, and that's that self-esteem that I am so passionate about, so focused on. You know, is that guitar? Is that acting? Is that, you know, and you know, like video games. A lot of parents out there, you know, listen to this. Self-esteem, some kids like ourselves just get their self-esteem from video games. So you can't look at that video game as a video game. So it's analyzing, knowing the situation, knowing your kid. You know, is it basketball? You know, Kobe Bryant, for an example. Kobe Bryant's dyslexic. You know, everybody talks about him working so hard because he was dyslexic. He saw it differently. You know, I worked harder than anybody else because he didn't have friends, because he didn't relate with any of the guys. Just like everybody thought I was a whack job, they all thought Kobe Bryant was a whack job. Same exact, you know, same thing. We didn't relate. We didn't connect with anybody. So what did we do? Worked at the only thing we were good at.
You guys should have my brother on this show, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, he was a professional UFC fighter. I feel like him and Brent would like.
Oh, you
jive.
did tell me. I do remember that now.
Because I was
forgot that,
thinking of him when you were talking just now, because he really just dove into martial arts and then getting in the ring when he could, and then he went on. He was like the Sanda world champion kickboxer, and then he went on to the UFC. But
no, 100%.
Really,
we would love to have him on.
Yeah, you know, and the anger. How much anger did your brother have? You know.
A lot of anger. Yeah. Beat a lot of people up.
So guys miss it so much. It's so.
I think like those extreme sports sometimes. I don't know if there's any data on it when it comes to dyslexia. I would say with ADHD. I don't know if my brother has ADHD, but there's got to be something with extreme sports. There has to be some sort of connection. Do you guys know anything about that?
No.
Well, you know,
I don't.
it's
It's
that anger, though, which when you talked about it, you know, extremes, you know, how many, Juliet, how many guys get in fights, you know, and if we correlate those back, you know, people that like to fight, you know, okay, there's a why. There's a reason why have that
anger,
feud.
yeah,
there's an anger in there, you know. There's that class counter bully. So if we actually kind of did the backtrack of it, guarantee, you know, it's that anger that I don't connect, that I'm weird, that I'm like this, like that, you know. So it's, and then all of a sudden you start winning, you know, and it's oh shit, I did it. All right, boom, and then you go a little bit more, and you go a little bit more, and then holy shit, I'm finally good at something. Oh my God. And then you just keep going and you keep going, and there's nothing else. Like there's tunnel vision because everything else sucks and it hurts and it's pain. So I'm just going to stay down that path of what I'm good at.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's where the strengths and weaknesses, right? I mean, that's where like what we talk to parents about is really finding that thing and not doing all of the after school tutoring, right? Your kid struggles, but you're like, oh, I can't have them do any after school stuff because I have to get them like, you know, okay in school. And this is like a lot of times before obviously the child is diagnosed with dyslexia or any learning disabilities. And I just always think like that's killing that child, right? That's killing that child. You have to let them run free. You have to let them sometimes walk to school, right? You have to let them run around the house before they have to sit for all those hours. There's so many different things that can be really small that a parent can do. And especially like if a parent doesn't understand, we talk about this all the time. A lot of times I have friends that it's the husband that has dyslexia or ADHD, and they'll come to me and they're like, I just don't understand it. And it's so frustrating. How do I get this kid to do this and this? And how do I not get frustrated with them? And, you know, we all have to give ourselves grace, right? Because there's times where we're going to get frustrated and you can't help it. But it's like, just take a breath and pause and just think, okay, what can I do? Your kid's not going to ever want to do the homework, right? So like, how can you make it, talk to the teacher, figure it out? But like, that's where it's like, we have to do better for these kids, because it's just like we're throwing all of this stuff on them, and everything is about their weaknesses. How do we make you stronger? I mean, I used to go into every IEP meeting. I mean, the listeners know, and Brent knows the story. I literally would be like, oh my God, I'm going to rip someone's face off if you guys talk one more time about his weaknesses. We all know his weaknesses. He's not going to be a mathematician or a scientist. Our dyslexia, which is kind of interesting, is more on the math. I mean, that's dyscalculia as well, but our science and math,
Scarlett's is as well.
We're stronger in history and English. But it's when we're read to, right? It's like when someone can read, because it's a story. I could learn a story in every day, but I would literally go in there and say to them, like, you have to like stop. Like, you have to think about, okay, these are the strengths. Let's uplift them and be like, okay, the weaknesses are here. They're never going to be something like with dysgraphia, right? I remember them being like, he's got to do this, he's got to do that. And I was like, okay, I've learned a little bit about dysgraphia. Like, my dad has it and his handwriting is like what it is. My handwriting is what it is. Like, can we just move past that and figure out another aspect instead of being like, hey, you suck at this, let's keep doing it. Yes, you have to practice. There is a practice to it, but it's like you have to know when to cut that and be like, okay, we can do it a little bit, but not throw it down the kid's throat.
Totally. And also, like, we type now and we use our thumbs for most things. So.
You know,
or like our voice.
To your point, there is mainstream school is they don't know to look for strengths or weaknesses. So, you know, I talk about this all the time, Bridget. You know, how many of the teachers are dyslexic? You know, how many, like, people don't even know what ADHD is, dopamine. You know, it's a faucet. You know, we don't get it. You can't yell across the room. You know, so you're right. It's all about strengths and weaknesses. But in school and in those classrooms, those people don't even know how to look at it that way. They look at it as, you know, okay, you're an A student, so you got strengths. They don't even look at as weaknesses or vice versa. That's why I really talk about being okay with both, because we all do. If you're not okay with both, then you can't, you know, level that off. Oh yeah, my left leg's stronger than my right leg. Everybody's is. You know, that's just we're all focused on one, and I always say that the education piece isn't there to be able to recognize both. And that self-esteem, I don't give a flying fuck about a math problem. Close that book. You know, I talk about self-esteem as a gas tank. If it's half a tank, cheap and easy to fill up. But when it's on empty, it's fucking expensive and long to fill up. And sometimes it never, ever fills up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridget, I would love to also like know your path with Scarlett now. Because I know we had talked kind of when you guys were coming to the realization and the findings, I should say, that, you know, that Scarlett was possibly dyslexic and ADHD. And we talked about different schools and different methods. Do you want to just like kind of talk about where you guys are with her right now and where she is? I mean, because anytime I see any pictures that she just looks like such a free spirit. Oh my God, she's so cute. Just this free spirited, happy go lucky kid. Which we all know what school can do when you struggle, right? I mean, I have my moments. My mom remembers like a day that I came home and I was like smushed, and I can remember like, you know, school shrinking me. But then again, being that fiery kid that was like, no, F you guys, I'm not going to be smushed again. You know, but not everyone can do that. So can you give us a little kind of where you guys are with that, you know, what you're comfortable with sharing?
Yeah, of course. So I'm really grateful that I moved her to Windward, which is a school that specializes in dyslexia, for those of you that don't know, in the second grade. I mean, I think her confidence was starting to get beat down. And so second grade, you know, we switched schools. We found out that she was dyslexia. As she's been at Windward, we've now found out that she has dyscalculia too. And it's worse. The math is much more of a struggle than the English is.
Me.
Same with me. And, but this is a cool story. So, you know, we definitely struggled last year just with the anxiety. I think there's a lot of anxiety that can come with these learning issues too. That's probably, we need more awareness around. Because kids at the end of the day, most of them want to be happy. Like I always say to like her counselors, her therapists, her teachers, if she's having anxiety or she's upset about something, I'm like, what I can tell you is at the end of the day, Scarlett's happy. Scarlett's main goal in life is to have fun and be happy. And that's something I just love about her, you know? But she struggled last year with some anxiety, whatever. But so then cut to the end of the school year was her dance recital. And she loves dance. I was a big dancer. Dancing, I always say, Brent saved my life. I always say, because it was the thing, I almost went professional. Like, I just threw myself in there through anything, like bullying, anything that was going on. And so I see her on stage. And this is another thing I think people don't realize when they just think, oh, dyslexia is just flipping your B's and your D's. Dyslexia goes into how you learn choreography in a dance class, how you like, how you do sports.
How the hell do you do that?
It's all that processing. You know, how did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. And then I'm looking around like, so I see her on stage and multiple other moms, my friends, her or people that knew her, came up to me and just were like, she was shining out there. And I watched her in this dance recital and I just had like tears in my eyes because I'm like, she's confident. She feels confident right now. It's the first time I had seen her in a really long time because she's been really struggling since she was 3. Feel like I can go out there and I can do this stuff. So we're in year 2 of having this really hands-on help. Super lucky we live by the school. And I think it's incredible. I'm so grateful that I knew about dyslexia, to Brent's point. Like, I knew about it from my family. I'm learning a lot about myself. I've learned so much about myself through all of her diagnoses. But she's doing good. Like, I think she's gonna have a road, but I think hopefully if I can keep guiding her to, like you said, we have strengths and weaknesses, and you're dynamite. You don't have to be the best. I hope one day she likes to read, because I like to read, but reading's really hard for me. So now I listen to audiobooks, but I think reading is just it's a great way to escape. Like, we all escaped into our sports, right? And it's like, okay, so now that you're older, you're not on the, you're not going to a game and playing or lacrosse, or I'm not dancing and forgetting that the world exists for those however many minutes or whatever. And I think like movies and books are great ways to escape, and they're a great way to learn. So I'm hoping, that's my goal. Like, not my goal, but my wish for her is that she just enjoys a book one day. Right now she's like, don't like school, hate school.
Yeah.
Does Montgomery say
yeah,
that?
well, we used to do a lot of audiobooks. So he really young loved, like, and this is his college essay is basically like, I couldn't wait to go to school to learn to read myself, because we read to him so much. And then when he realized, because he said, he was like, it was like a fantasy. It was all these different worlds. And my mom was a big reader, and I would tell these stories, and everything was a story. So he could not wait to be able to do it himself. And then the realization that it wasn't coming is like, such a kick in the pants. Now I probably shouldn't, I'm not going to actually say what I was going to say on this, but the things that he does to get around reading is pretty hilarious. And I'm like, okay, kudos. But no, he does not like it. But however, Penelope is the biggest bookworm. And when she was little, when Montgomery was being diagnosed, she came home from preschool one day and I was like, honey, what is wrong? And she bursted out crying. She was 4 and she said, I can't read. I think I have dyslexia. And she was seeing what was raveling in our house, where we were stressed. Like, we're trying to figure this out. How can we help Montgomery? And I said to her, you're 4. You're not supposed to read. There was this kid named George in her class. And she said, well, George knows how to read. And I was like, well, George's a weirdo. She goes, I'll never forget. I go, he's too young. Why does he know how to read? I go, stay away from George. And it was actually hilarious because then I became friends with the parents. But she taught herself to read from that day. She called my mom and was like, you need to teach me. And she is the biggest reader. And I'm going to say is here today. And Brent knows this. This is actually hilarious. She comes out the other day. She's like, Mom, my favorite book is coming out. It is coming out early. Like, can I please stay home from school? And now she's a huge sports and she's really good at it. But what she loves is reading. And I laugh. I talk to God about it. I'm like, really? Because that's how we connect. And I hate to read. So I've had to learn, because I'm like, to connect with my daughter, sports, we both play lacrosse. She doesn't want to talk about lacrosse. She does not want to talk about any of it. She wants to talk about the books she's reading. So I was like, I have to connect with her. So I have to figure this out. So she got me involved in a bunch of her chapter books, but she's like, I know you're going to listen. And there was like one that had 6, and I literally became so engulfed. Like, I was fascinated by it, and we would have conversations about it, but it wasn't like, she knows that I have to listen. I can't open the book and read it. They're like 500 pages. Like, the books that she reads and that she can do with such ease is so fascinating to me, and that she loves it so much. Like, I will put money on this right now. She'll be a writer, and she will probably write like these most beautiful things. Like, and it's fantasy stuff. So it's just really, really cool. But so I have the extremes. I have literally the 2 extremes on either end, which is fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Books,
though.
absolutely not. Get it away from me. 14th floor, let me jump out. Read a book, never.
Wait, what about audiobook?
No, I've tried to get him to. I've been like, you need to listen to this. And he's like,
so,
listening.
She's asked me this question many times. My scars are so fresh. Like, it's only been a few years since I've, found this out. So you guys, again, that's, innate confidence, so you talk about school, you talk about reading, you talk about that. I get anger. So I'm not in a place to, to do that. I'll have conversations with anybody that, about mental health, addiction, drug, anything. But to dive into a audiobook or dive into a book, I won't remember my my anger blocks it all. So I know I can't go there right now. Maybe there will be a day, probably not, but it's just where I am. I get that information. I live on the phone. I'm always talking, with the foundation. I put people in rehabs. I don't even know who they are. People calling off suicide. Like, I'm always, that's how I get my information is listening to people, is to, do things like this, to be able to have conversations with parents of all types, dyslexics, non-dyslexics, educate, counsel thousands of people. So it's just getting that information in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And connecting. You're a connector.
He is a big connector.
Yeah, that game I hated that game. What was it? Didn't you have to Connect 4?
Connect 4? I liked
Connect 4. Connect 4.
I actually loved Connect 4.
We talked about this. Games and board games is just nothing but anxiety for me. Because how am I going to struggle?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I would get so nervous when people would be like, let's play Trivia Pursuit. I'm like, no. Let's play Trivia or Scrabble. Let's not play Scrabble either.
No.
See ya, bye.
Pictionary.
Right.
Charades.
Right. No, but it's so...
Do you want me to sing? I can't sing, but I'll do that.
Right. No, but it's so many different things that you think about, like, just with figuring out and finding out when or what. And that's what Brent is really trying to push worldwide, right? You need that neuropsych, because I've been saying this even before I met him, and I thought it was fascinating, but that he then started saying it, I was like, wait, this is what I say, that there's no such thing as a class clown or bully. I was like, there's something going on, whether it's at home or they're struggling in school, right? Like, why are people just being like, oh, let's push that kid through, right? There's something behind there. Every kindergartner wants to get the answer right? Why? Right? Every kindergarten wants to get the answer right.
Who wants to struggle? Nobody in this world. I don't care who you are. White, green, black. Nobody wants to. Can I sit and struggle for 8 hours a day? Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. And so finding out.
That's so true.
Getting it done early.
I never thought about it that way.
Right? Like getting it early.
There is no class clown or troublemaker. What's going on?
And it would save so, and it's why, and it would save so many things with all the violence that's happening now. Like I was saying this like years ago, like we need to, there's a disconnect, and really what the disconnect is through the years, and we could go on for hours on this, but what the disconnect is that education is also they're not doing the remedial stuff, right? It's like, especially when you're in towns that are high level, they're like, oh, these kids are good. We don't need to go to the basics. So the kids that are struggling are actually struggling even earlier if they're not severe dyslexia, right? They can get through some stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like they're missing. I mean, I remember, and I'm not going to say the town, but where we were, they like literally missed all the stuff that Montgomery needed. And it was like, yeah, we're doing it at home, but you're doing it here. And now we're then moving it up. And he missed all of that. And it was because I think they changed the curriculum or did something stupid. And it was just like, it really screwed us. But that's what's happening more and more. It's like, they're not doing that, like the ABCs, the way they did it when we were younger.
They don't, it's a business, and they don't, and I always, Bridget, is just, you got to educate before you can change.
So thank you guys for joining Word Blindness. This is another awesome episode with Bridgett Burrick Brown of Beyond Beauty Product. You know what I always say is that you might have listened to this and you might have been like, that's a great story, but you do not know who needs to hear this. So like, rate, review, and share, and we'll see you for another episode of Word Blindness.